One of the most common frustrations I hear from CEOs sounds like this. My sales team are extremely busy being busy, but revenue still isn't where it should be. Sound familiar? The CRM is full, there are calls happening every day, emails are going out, phone calls being made, meetings are being booked, but when the leadership team sits down to look at the numbers, something just doesn't add up. The pipeline looks active, the pipeline looks bloated even, but deals aren't closing, and forecasts, well, they just feel like guesswork. And every quarter, the same conversation happens again and again. Why are we so busy but not seeing the results? And what most companies eventually realize is this: sales activity and sales performance isn't the same thing. You can have a team that's incredibly busy and still have a sales system that is fundamentally broken. In this video, I want to unpack why that happens. We'll look at why activity alone doesn't drive revenue, why many pipelines create a false sense of security, what indicators actually predict sales performance, and how leadership can create accountability without being micromanagers. Because once you start understanding the difference between activity and performance, sales stops feeling unpredictable. In many sales organizations, sales performance is measured through activity. It's all about the numbers. How many calls were made? How many emails were sent? How many meetings were booked? How many proposals did we present? On the surface, that sounds reasonable. If activity goes up, well, sales results should go up with it. But in complex B2B sales environments, that relationship isn't always true, because activity without direction can actually create an illusion of productivity. A salesperson might spend the entire week on calls, having the wrong conversations with the wrong people. They might be responding to inquiries, attending meetings, following up on proposals. But if those conversations are happening with the wrong avatar or the wrong stage of the buying process, then activity doesn't necessarily move revenue forward. So the team feels busy, but the pipeline doesn't grow in a meaningful way. Quality over quantity. This is what I call the activity trap. The organization measures effort, not progress. They measure quality, not quantity. And once the company falls into this trap, sales performance, it becomes very hard to diagnose, because the numbers say the team's working, but the results say something completely different. Look, to understand why this happens, we need to look at the next issue, the pipeline illusion. Most pipelines look healthy on the surface. The deals are in the CRM. There are opportunities moving through the stages. There are proposals out with customers. But when leadership looks closer, they often discover something quite surprising. You see, many of those deals aren't real opportunities. They're not well qualified. They're conversations that really never progressed into a genuine buying process. Maybe perhaps the problem wasn't clearly identified by the salesperson. Maybe the decision maker or decision makers hadn't been identified. Maybe there wasn't a real timeline for action. Or maybe the customer, well, they were simply gathering information. But because the deal was really added to the pipeline without proper qualification early in the process, it creates this appearance of future revenue. At the end of the day, it makes the salesperson look good. It's good for their ego, but ego doesn't close deals. And this is what I call the pipeline illusion. The CRM looks full, but the pipeline isn't actually qualified. And when the deals inside the pipeline aren't based on real buying intent, forecasts, they become so unreliable, which is why many leadership teams feel like they're constantly surprised by the results. But the pipeline said the quarter looked so strong. It looked like we were going to smash our targets, but the revenue, well, we missed it. It never arrived. To fix that, we need to talk about something most companies misunderstand, and that is KPIs. Most businesses measure sales performance using lagging indicators, revenue, closed deals, quarterly results. So those numbers are important, don't get me wrong, but they only tell you what's happening after it's already happened. They don't help you predict what's about to happen. In complex B2B sales environments, leaders, they need to focus on the leading indicators. Leading indicators are the activities and the behaviors that drive future revenue. Things like how many qualified opportunities are entering the pipeline each week? How many opportunities have clear business problems attached to them? How many prospects actually said this is a very high priority for us and gave you a timeline to resolve it? When these conditions are strong, future revenue becomes more predictable. But when they're weak, well, the problems, well, they appear later in the pipeline. And by the time leadership really sees the revenue shortfall, it's often too late to fix. And this is why companies need visibility into the early stages of the sales process. Not just the final numbers, but even with the right metrics and qualifications in place, there is another challenge that usually surfaces, and that is accountability. Many leaders really struggle with how closely they should be monitoring sales performance. On one hand, you don't want to be a micromanager of your team, but on the other hand, you kind of need that visibility. You really need to understand what's actually happening inside the deals. Without that visibility, leadership ends up relying on updates and opinions and very optimistic salespeople. Sales meetings become storytelling sessions. Everyone reports on progress, but here's the thing, no one's actually challenging whether that deal is actually real and well qualified. Strong sales organizations tend to handle this very differently. They build accountability into the system itself, accountability that drives the right behaviors. Deals only move forward when specific criteria are met. Decision makers are identified early in the process. The buying process is well understood. And what I mean by that is, how does that prospect go and make buying decisions for this type of thing? Who's involved in the buying decision? What criteria do they make those decisions on? What is their timeline? Do they have a budget? Is this the type of solution they're looking for? All of these things need to be well qualified. When these standards and criteria are built into your system, accountability doesn't require micromanagement. And that really leads me to the final piece, because the way sales teams meet and review performance plays a huge role in whether a sales system actually works. In many companies, weekly sales meetings follow the same pattern. Every salesperson tends to give an update. They explain their deals. They explain where things stand. And then the conversation moves to the next person. The meeting ends, but guess what? Nothing really happens. The same problems and the same conversations appear the following week. High performance sales teams run these meetings very differently. Instead of updates, they focus on diagnosing and coaching. They look at the deals and ask specific questions. Has the problem been clearly identified? Do we know how they make a decision based on this type of product or service? Is there real evidence on this deal moving forward? If the answer to those questions isn't clear, the deal doesn't move forward in the pipeline. This creates a rhythm inside the organization. In these types of meetings, if the questions don't have clear answers, the deal doesn't get moved forward in the pipeline. This creates a rhythm inside the organization. Every week, the quality of the opportunities improve. And over time, the pipeline becomes cleaner, forecasts become way more accurate, and the leadership team gains real visibility. Sales stops being guesswork, and it becomes a predictable and profitable sales machine. If your sales team feels busy but results remain unpredictable, you're not alone. It's one of the most common problems we see in complex B2B sales organizations. The issue usually is an effort. Sales teams, well, they're working really, really hard. The issue really is structure. Activity without strategy, pipelines without qualification, metrics that measure history instead of predicting the future. When companies shift from measuring activity to managing performance, everything changes. Pipelines become cleaner, forecasts become more reliable, and leadership finally gains clarity needed to scale revenue. Because in the end, growth doesn't come from more activity. It comes from a system that takes quality activity and turns them into predictable results. If you're wanting to build a high-performance sales team, it all starts with the foundations. Get a hold of our one-page sales plan. Click on the link below. The results will delight you.